Welcome to the Five Phenomenon Podcast. I am your host, Shane Hazen, and back this week, Ted Haycraft.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while. We have a planned series coming up that I am delinquent in actually doing my research part on it, so that's kept you off, I guess. But today we are discussing the Cormac McCarthy Ridley Scott collaboration, The Counselor, from 2013. Was it 2013?
Yeah, 2013. I do believe it is. I watched it again. The unrated extended version. Yep. Which now I was reading something. I was reading a few things online and read Ridley Scott is the godfather of director's cuts. And I just thought about that. I guess that's true. And almost every film of his lately has extended cuts.
They really do, and they're almost. We'll get into this in the episode, but first off, what did you watch this week?
What did I watch this week? I saw a series of films in the theater.
Yeah,
and they all seem to have a kind of a common theme. So I went from Nomadland, Land, Minari, and The World to Come, and I'm like, The land. It's like everything had to deal with getting back to the ground and the land and roaming and starting over and starting again. And yeah, it's really, I was like, wow, it was almost like I was watching a festival of the same themes,
I haven't caught Nomadland yet. World to Come, I think, is already left.
Yes, it did.
But I did see Minari, so I did have that distinct feeling. I mean, this is going to be a common thing over the next year, but it was just like a real movie in the theater. That's actually good.
Yeah. It was weird too because this is really trivial, but the fact that I saw on my algorithms on my Facebook, the AMC was really plugging The World to Come. Like, AMC's got this play. We're going to go to AMC to see this movie. Well, it showed up in our mom and pop theater here in town. And the mom and pop theater didn't get Nomadland. It's at AMC, Nomadland. So I'm like, well, that's bizarre.
That was the other reason. There was hope originally that Nomadland, it's supposed to have an IMAX release, and then we might have gotten an IMAX. And
they're waiting for that probably then.
No, it's not coming. It's not coming to Evansville.
It's at AMC has it.
No, but the IMAX is. The IMAX is. They apparently diminished their run or something.
But there is an IMAX version of it.
Yeah. Yeah, they blew it up to IMAX.
What do you think of Minari? One thing I wanted to ask you about that was I love that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's Emile Mosieri, I guess. He's the guy that did the score to Last Black Man in San Francisco.
I haven't seen that yet.
He's doing some interesting work, but yeah.
Oh, I mean,
very distinct.
I'm gonna pre-order the soundtrack. Because I couldn't believe how good it was, and it almost had its own character in the movie because it's not something you would think would be that kind of soundtrack with that movie. Mm-hmm. So I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, and the grandma is up for a bunch of reward stuff, deservedly so. That is a role that does not feel acted. That feels like they just found somebody.
Yeah, you got good old Will Patton showing up and doing his supporting part.
I always like Will Patton when he shows up and stuff, and he's doing some he was doing some very eccentric work in this, but it was as written in, so it's
like you got David Strathairn in Nomadland, you got Will Patton and Minari. You just his go-to supporting guys are
Still
great.
Haven't seen Nomadland, so I don't.
Well, Strathairn, you knew the Strathairn's in it, right?
I didn't. Actually.
Oh, you didn't really?
No, I'm debating whether to go to the theater or just it's on Hulu. I should maybe.
It's big vistas and landscapes.
That makes sense, but I mean the whole point. Seeing a movie in the theater right now, you want to be alone.
You're going to be probably alone. I think all four of those movies. I think there was hardly anybody in hardly any of them. It wouldn't be.
We should probably also mention that by the time this airs, the Golden Globes will have happened.
Right. Yeah. I gotta watch it tomorrow night and do my homework for my cinema chat with Mike Blake on Monday.
This is another year where I'm thinking about just watching the monologue, and how are they?
They're doing like one Tina's and one like in New York, and
I heard how
Amy's in LA. Well, of course, the one thing I do like about the Golden Globes, we won't have it, I guess, is I love when they go to bumps, and I love to see.
Right.
Oh, there's Warren Beatty talking to Leonardo.
Right.
You get to see this really weird juxtaposition of stars and filmmakers talking to each other. You don't normally they don't normally get the chance to do either.
The thing I always love about the Golden Globes is it's distinctly the drunk award show. Like it's them hanging out and they're clearly drinking. Although I love the jokes they've been making more increasing the years of like TV's relegated to the outer part of the room.
Yeah. And they're not very clip heavy. Versus the Oscar hasn't been clip heavy either. That's one thing I'm so bummed. Yeah. I love montages. Give me more montages. Give me clips. Give me why we watch these things instead of just talking heads.
But Ted, they got to save the Oscars this year. This is going to be the year it's finally a really highly rated performance. But they have to have the box office winner of the year be nominated to get good ratings on it.
Yeah.
It's like weird false argument that appears on Twitter the day after. And of course the hosts are always terrible. They've never had a good host. That crap too.
Yeah.
So do we want to do you want to do the recap or should I? Cuz this is my pick. This movie's my pick. I'm glad I picked it. I think this movie got falsely.
What happened? I mean, I remember coming out of the theater loving the thing.
You loved it all.
Oh, I had no problems with it right off the bat, and I remember thinking, it's Ridley Scott, it's Brad Pitt, Javier Bardem, Cameron Diaz, Penelope Cruz, a lot of interesting cameos. Why did and Cormac McCarthy a script?
I ran into when I was seeing Minari. I ran into our past guest and Richard Lester dinner attendee Aaron Smith, and he put on his finger on the pulse exactly what I was thinking. People were expecting No Country for Old Men Part 2, and you get another Cormac McCarthy Southwest movie. It's going to involve the cartel, so you just think that no one was expecting a movie this funny, I think. And we both watched the unrated version, right?
Yeah, funny. Funny. So that's your reaction. I don't know so much. I think the funny comes in as a rewatching and more.
Oh no, it's definitely a rewatch. Okay. I've read my share of Cormac McCarthy books, but I'm also one of those pedestrians that really started with No Country, and then I read The Road, and I've tried Blood Meridian, and I will probably get to it.
Which one was Oprah's? The Road was Oprah's book club selection.
Right. But one that I just finished about a few months ago, which I've been trying to read for years, is Sutri, which is his book from, I want to say, 1978. It's Roger Ebert's favorite Cormac McCarthy novel. And Ebert's point on why it was his favorite is because it has this Huckleberry Finn vibe of it's actually funny. Because when you think of McCarthy, you think of
desolation,
life, death,
nihilism.
Yes, yes, a lot of biblical Old Testament,
oblivion.
Yeah, but there is a lot of.
I think Ridley Scott wanted to do Blood Meridian. He said, but he didn't know if he could do
the judge. How do you cast the judge?
Well, the atmosphere of that. What goes on in that book.
That would be kind of. Ridley Scott's version of that would be pretty amazing. But okay, so let's start with the plot synopsis. You wanted to make a clear point. Ooh, this is a big spoiler. You have to see this movie to listen to our conversation about this.
Yeah, or if you're, I mean, I think if you just want to listen to us, you might actually will help you a little bit to go into it, because we're going to say things that will give plot points away. But it may help you to actually go, I do want to see this now. I hope that's our goal here, I guess, is watch this film. It's such an overlooked, underrated film. Even though Ridley mentioned in the commentary, he was happy that there was a couple places, high places that liked the film. I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that.
Okay.
I thought, because I remember, and of course Rolling Stone liked it. Peter Travers of all people, he's so mainstream. I was surprised that he was a champion of the film.
Huh.
And because of the trailers. I watched the trailers on the disc.
Oh.
And they were quoting Rolling Stone and one other publication. That was it.
I thought I'd seen a quote from Rolling Stone that they said that it was just a little too. They made fun of the capitalist critique. Of the movie.
Well, they wouldn't do that in the trailer if you.
That surprisingly isn't in the TV spot.
No.
All right. I'm having a problem doing plot synopses. I just don't like doing them. But
Well, you want me to take a stab at it, or you just what?
go for it.
Well, I'm just saying you got Michael Fassbender
Plays the titular counselor.
Yeah, and of course, here's a tip right off the bat. And I didn't even think about this now, but this has happened occasionally recently too in some other films. We never know his name.
Yeah,
And the credit comes up. It's the counselor, and that's one of those things you realize. Oh yeah,
I read the published screenplay of this, which McCarthy's put out a few of his. He's written 2 scripts, The Gardener's Son and this, and he's written a few plays. And I want to say that this isn't one of those things where a lot of times when screenplays are published, they end up being just transcripts of the film. They don't show them, like in Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape book. He was very distinctive, like I'm giving you the shooting draft of the script, not a transcript of that. I get the vibe that this is still the first draft McCarthy produced. McCarthy supposedly wrote this script in 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's what. You saw that little featurette where he talked about that. He was like taking a break from writing some other stuff. But because and when he calls it the counselor, that's to me. That's a tip right there. That's a big tip of that.
Character development isn't a big issue.
Or something's up. And you got to think about why would you not normally. Hollywood, a typical film with everybody's names and blah blah blah. You might give a backstory.
These characters are metaphors.
So anyway, for some reason he wants some money quickly, and he seems like he's doing okay. And he's partners up with Harvey Bardem. They're gonna.
He's getting married.
Yeah, he's
to Laura, played by Penelope Cruz.
And he has to get a big diamond for it. And he gets a diamond. He's going to go in cahoots with Harvey Bardem. They're going to open up this really state-of-the-art disco. Harvey Bardem has a woman in his life, Cameron Diaz, who has 2 cheetahs as her pets.
Malkina is her name?
Malkina, yeah. And she is a piece of work. And
we're definitely going to get into her performance in character.
And so the counselor makes a decision that I'm going to go into this one. He believes he's going to do it one time. The indication is that he's pretty much stayed straight arrow.
I was so vague on exactly is Javier Bardem and him. Are they pooling money together?
Well, we're going to get into that because
you had plot issues that
I have a question about that. So anyway, but whatever they do, because they're going to get the money and drugs are involved. Brad Pitt is a middleman, comes in. He's kind of this, and they talk about how they dressed him up as Hank Williams. That's his, that's what they were doing. They based him on Hank Williams Sr. How Hank would dress up in the cowboy outfits.
He's a drug dealer with 3 cords and a VPN.
So Brad says, "You do want to do this," and Harvey says, "You want to do this." They give the counselor plenty of warning. He goes, "Yes, I do want to do this." And of course, it goes wrong. Now we're going to talk about this at some point here about what went wrong. But whatever went wrong, the cartel is now going to say, "You're owe us. You messed up, and you're going to have to pay." And Harvey's going to have to pay. Brad's going to have to pay, and the counselor Fassbender's going to have to pay.
Do they even say that? There's just suddenly it goes wrong, and then suddenly it's just like their lives are over.
Yeah,
that's how the movie.
It.
It's like it's not even they offer them to pay. There was like a threat of a phone call, and then
And then amongst this is going on. That's the major thing that you see on the top level. Cameron has done her own thing. She's scheming behind Javier, and so we see what she's doing. And she has her own agenda, and which comes out and does her own thing, and then it pretty much ends up in just a big mess of nihilism at the end. Except for her, she actually gets to walk away from it.
Yeah. So this movie started out, I remember following when it got announced, and McCarthy wrote the script in 5 weeks.
And it was a big deal because it was going. I remember that publicity was like it's straight to film. It's not one of his books.
Right, and there was a little bit of a bidding war on it, I think, and then there was an auction for who was going to direct it, and Ridley Scott put his hat in the ring, and I guess he flew out to El Paso or.
Yeah, he'd been like
Santa Fe.
He had been wanting to do. He was interested in Cormac, and I think he was interested in Blood Meridian. And then they called him up or said, "Hey, we got the script." He read it over the weekend and said, "I want to do it."
Right.
He just quick.
And then I do remember it was such a big deal that all these names signed on, including Javier Bardem, who famously playing Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. He was coming back to play a McCarthy role. That was a big deal.
Small budget. It was not that big a budget, and considering the 4 stars, I think they all took a cut. Sounds like just to make this thing work.
This is also a period where Hollywood in particular was very reverential of McCarthy after No Country for Old Men. And are you a fan of the Road movie?
I liked The Road. I liked No Country. Yeah, I liked everything I've seen of his stuff adapted. I unfortunately have not read the books. I know you have.
Have you seen Sunset Limited?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's one you might want to check out. That's the one Tommy Lee Jones directed. That's got him and Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, the hotel room. Yeah. But I wanted to. Never, it never came to the theater, so I haven't.
I don't think it was released theatrically. It's weird because it's presented. People always call it a play, but like the subtitle on the book is a novel in dramatic form. So I guess it came out at the same time as The Road, and they're supposed to be companion pieces to each other. But I'm
glad you reminded me. Let's see if it's
I think that's the screenplay credit of his too, so that precedes. This is definitely not Cormac McCarthy's first script.
The books get so much attention. They really wanted to. They really played that up. But I was just really impressed with the cast. And again, I walked out going, why are people talking about this? And of course, the concentration. We got to talk about the one scene that gets so much over.
Does it get over attention? Because it is my favorite scene. I think that's we're talking about the car scene.
Yes. Cameron Diaz at some point, and it's interesting too because the film is really just straight linear, but this is a flashback.
Well, it's the first flashback.
I think it's the one and only. Okay, there might be one other, but
I do like this movie a lot, but at the same time, I find this movie more interesting, but also odd. And
it is odd. That's why it makes it
very distinct and very interesting.
Yeah,
it's odd. Like the screenwriting style in particular. Like McCarthy had everyone wanted to jump on board, and there's something about this movie has a lot of two-head talking scenes, and it's not a lot of plot progression talking.
No, it's heavy. It's dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, like
Shakespearean.
Well, even early on the commentary, Ridley Scott comments on the fact that like this 5 minutes into the movie, you have like a 11-minute scene talking about diamonds, and it's weird because like in its way, when Cameron Diaz she looks at the diamond and she's an expert in diamonds. Into the movie, she talks about diamonds as a currency. It has this vibe of being the inciting incident. Actually, like it's weirdly the obsession with money is what starts out, but at the same time the movie is just one long dialogue scene after another, and it's a very what style I thought of, like the closest antecedent I could think of is Tarantino. But even then, like the only time I've seen other screenwriters do this, they're usually writer directors. I was thinking of someone like Martin McDonagh kind of can write like this, and William Monahan, who wrote The Departed. His second directed movie Mojave, like this reminds me a lot of that style where long, philosophical. It may not push the story forward, but
no, I'm totally agree. I'm everything you're saying. I totally agree with. I mean, I could at any point I could just jump in and say yeah, because it's got that's maybe why people didn't take to it. In this day and age of franchise movies and action movies.
You think it's an audience deficiency for not? I mean, like
yeah, because I mean, even I can't. I had to sit there that whole scene. Bruno Gantz, love him. He shows up. The wonderful Bruno Gantz shows up as the diamond dealer. He's just the diamond dealer too. He has no name.
Yeah.
And Faust Peterson buy this giant, expensive diamond ring for Penelope. And they're talking about the Western civilization and Jews and stuff like this, and I'm just like, what? And I had to play it back a little bit and listen to it, and I still don't understand all of it.
My favorite line from that scene is the diminished brevity of our lives.
But I loved it because I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, going, obviously we're McCarthy and the screenwriter and Ridley are trying. There's something going on here. that we should, and the metaphorical idea of what's going on here. And so you want to try to break it down and listen to it. And so all of a sudden I'm like that for the entire film. And they don't, how everybody did. No, but nobody talks like normal in this thing.
Right. Well, this gets to one of my theories is, while I'm glad Ridley Scott directed a Cormac McCarthy novel or screenplay, I don't know, especially at the beginning, he's right for this. And I started thinking about him, a intensely dialogue-based movie. These scenes have very little tension in them. There's just nothing proposed, especially the front-loaded. The movie, for me, structurally, seems to peak in the middle. Like it seems like the dialogue scenes go away in the middle of the movie when all the shit starts blowing up. And then towards the end of the movie, they start coming back. And almost like structures itself towards.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm not sure I'm totally because I was going to say, I think this is one of Ridley's. At the time, I'm like, oh, this is a really good Ridley Scott film. To me, it almost rejuvenated my fandom for me, because at the time, Promethea was good. I mean, and of course, Promethea and Covenant. They're kind of frustrated. That's a whole other tangent here. But he was getting, the Exodus and Robin Hood. I was just like, they were just kind of sitting there. The Kingdom. What's the one called? The
Kingdom of Heaven. That's also written by William Monahan, and another great example of the extended version being a significantly better movie.
But they were just kind of like just washing over me without not giving me this, that original Ridley Scott rush I used to have back when he first started with Blade Runner and even someone to watch over me. I remember thinking the visual style of that. So all of a sudden it comes this little film with these actors and this script, and I'm just like, it's juicy.
Yeah, I think you're giving Ridley Scott credit. He's still a great filmmaker, and there's still some great work in this movie. I just think that, like, in later, you're pinpointing something that's in the later years, he's been more. It's his taste that's on display. It's what he chooses to make. But there's certain instances. Ridley Scott is very infamously a multi-camera shooter, and he considers himself a fast shooter. And you and I have talked about this before. I think I've talked about it on here. I put him in the category of like Spielberg and Eastwood, of like they're people who can get anything they want made pretty much. So they make a lot of first draft scripts, it feels like, and they make fast, and they're very fast shooters, and they pride themselves on being fast shooters. And sometimes that's not necessarily a great thing.
Well, yeah, and I thought of that. Actually, that thoughts crossed my mind. Especially if you watch the auto commentary, Ridley actually talks about that, and he talks about how saving time and money and getting done and getting 9 pages done in one day, blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, my first thinking in my mind was Clint Eastwood. How Clint's just so let's get it done so I can go play golf.
And Spielberg's not that bad with it, but my feeling is that like there's a thing with directors, from my experience working with them, that is overrated and misguided, where people like decisiveness in directors. They don't necessarily, and it doesn't matter if their decisions are good. And like Ridley Scott clearly has this idea, like, I just don't want to overthink a lot of the movie. I want to go on instinct on so much of it.
And let me throw this at you, because I'm just thinking, it's just another. We have different flavors of directors, and you're, like you said, Eastwood, Spielberg, Scott. That's what you're going to get with them, and then you got someone like Mr. Kubrick, or some other directors that go, or Fincher, who just wanted, or Altman. I love that story about Warren wanted to keep on doing more takes, and
Altman going home.
Okay, fine, Warren, go at it. I'm going home. I got what I wanted, and it became Mrs. Miller they were shooting.
Yeah.
So but I think this works. I mean, I don't.
No. I think the movie works.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to. It's just an interesting beast. It's clear Ridley Scott's very reverent, and everyone involved with is very reverential the fact that they're getting to work on a Cormac McCarthy script.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of juicy dialogue and talk, and like I said, people don't like to talk like this in real life, and that's what's so fun. It's kind of the fun of it. I mean, it's a movie, people. It's a movie. It's a book. It's a screenplay. Let's have fun. No, it doesn't. You're gonna get. You could have your your streamlined modern day Hollywood film and your old Hollywood film. You can have a documentary. You can have artsy fartsy stuff. But let's have this flavor.
I'm not saying it's an either or decision. It's just like just the first scene alone. Like it's odd for someone with such a great eye, someone such a visual director, to be directing shot reverse shot, talking heads, like have you heard people frame it Dragnet style? Editors talk Dragnet as like the model of like when you're editing, if you have two heads talking, you cut to whoever's talking, and then you cut to the other person talking. You never cut to whenever someone's not talking. It's just such a very basic TV level.
Well, can I mention that? Can I interrupt on that and say those three deleted scenes?
Okay.
The three deleted. Let me clear something. If you buy the Blu-ray, there's a theatrical cut, which I did not watch again. I watched the extended cut.
You and I both saw the theatrical cut when this first
when it
came out.
God, ages ago now. Mm-hmm. So I can't remember when I'm watching it now. It was almost like watching again new. So I'm not sure. I think a couple things. Oh, this is new. Seems like, but the weird thing is this is an extended cut we're watching, and I noticed that in the featurettes there are two scenes they're shooting. They're not in the extended cut. That's Fassbender's in the desert, obviously walking in his that last suit he's wearing. That's that. I don't know that's never used.
Yeah.
And then the other scene is her, Cameron on her knees in a black dress. Looks like she's trying to get her cheetah back. That's not
that. I don't know about him walking in the desert. I think that second scene is in the published screenplay. No, not in the movie. In the screenplay.
Now, whether those two scenes are in the theatrical cut, I'm almost curious because
I would be surprised if they didn't make the extended cut.
And that and what I've just described, those two scenes, we just see snippets in a featurette. We don't even see them how they were cut or how they were done. Now you put in the theatrical cut disc, which I did by mistake the first night I was watching this, and so I went ahead and watched. There's 3 deleted scenes on the theatrical cut disc. The 3 deleted scenes are not in the extended cut. They're edited differently, and they're edited like you're talking about. The reason I'm bringing up now is because what do you call it? The
back shot, reverse shot.
Shot, reverse shot. He's playing with it in those scenes. Penelope's talking to this guy in an airport.
There's a lot more
dialogue. She's talking, but her face is not.
Right.
And then there's another scene where the other deleted scene, Harvey M is meeting Cameron. It looks like the first time they ever met in this deleted scene to start the relationship. And it almost makes me think it was Tony. There's this couple of shots of color.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking
the most interesting shot they have in there is they have this like overhead, like a drone watching.
Well, all 3 end. 2 of them end with video, and the third one has audio of it, of this drone's air surveillance going on. And I'm like, was that? And I'm thinking, is that in the theatrical cut, or is this just got discarded totally? So,
why? Do you have any theory why?
No, I wanted to bring that up for a discussion. It's really curious because, like I said, the main reason I'm bringing it up now is just because I wanted to kind of counterpoint your fact that really just doing a back and forth talking shot, and he actually was playing with it in that airport sequence. Very, almost like Godard on testosterone.
I think a lot of my critique isn't that this is a bad movie because of it. It's just one of those things that was definitely threw me off on first viewing. I think threw a lot of people off on first viewing because even the cut down of the first opening scene, the bed sex scene, which again, there's just so many cuts in that scene, and it seems like a chase scene, especially in the theatrical one, but. Like it's an open conversation of like how wet her pussy is, and like it ends with a great line of you have the most magnificent pussy in all of Christendom. Like as long as you get Christendom in there, that word in there, McCarthy's writing it.
We should tell the people that at home listening to this that very R-rated discussion that it opens up before the title credits even come up. It's Michael and Penelope are in bed under the sheets. Always totally under the sheets, covered up, and having sex and talking sex.
Which they're just talking.
I also thought, I'm thinking, why do we want to open with this, and why do we want to have this? It establishes the relationship, but also I'm thinking about shrouds. They're both of them are covered in a white shroud.
That's a good point. First question: did you find out anything? If was Penelope Cruz pregnant when they shot?
Oh, you
that?
saw that? You think of that one sequence in the red dress? She looks like she's
Well, I started thinking back, like they don't show her, they shoot her from chest up almost
probably
the
like,
entire
oh, that's
movie.
very well beat. But anyway, you said you were a little mystified when you walked out of the theater when you first saw it, or
I thought it was underrated. I could clearly tell it was an interesting movie that had some great stuff in it. I thought it was, like you said, with Ridley Scott making these like $100 million anonymous movies. Like a few weeks ago, we had this talk about Exodus, and both of us couldn't even remember. Like, or I like, did he make a movie? That movie? Like, it's weird how he's. Although that being said, he hasn't made a feature since the Kevin Spacey one.
yeah, a feature, yeah, all the money in the world.
Yeah.
What's interesting, but I remember too. I walked out mystified too. I was walking out scratching my head, but it was a good scratching a head. To me, it was like one of those. I don't know if I get this, but I really liked it for some reason. It really has this, and I think that's when a lot of people. Just if it makes them it's too offbeat and too wonky, they just want to shut down, or they want to talk. They don't like it, or and I guess going back to Eric Braceman's class, don't just say it's dumb or stupid or bad. Just think about it for a while and digest it.
I've been thinking lately when it comes to film criticism or just even talking to someone about film, value judgments are the cheapest form of like just it doesn't matter if a movie you think a movie's good or bad. What is it about? What is it doing? Describe it. Go into detail. Don't just say good or bad. That does nothing for me.
And there are nuggets to glean out of this film about life. Of course, it's so pitched at such a high artistic level in this film, but you could take things out of that and go apply it to yourself in an interesting way.
I actually got a question for you. Do you remember a line in the movie? Greed is overrated, but fear isn't. Is that in the movie?
No, I thought there was the one where he goes, greed is describing greed.
There's some descriptions of greed, but
that might be in the. But I'm thinking there's another one about what that's. Because that's not what greed is. Greed is this.
This gets to one of the things that again, I don't want to seem like I'm negative on the movie. It's just certain disconnects I think between McCarthy and Scott's style, but I think that line's cut out of the movie. It's in the script, and not only is it in the script, but in a different paperback version of the screenplay, that line is on the cover of the screenplay, and I don't think it's in the movie. And one of the things is just Scott is very clearly interested in the greed morality play of everything, and I think the morality play aspects of Cormac McCarthy's writing is more later years. It's more No Country for Old Men and after, and there's more. I think the nihilistic, cruel world aspect to everything is more. Like greed is in the Mexican cartel seems like a thing we've seen many times, and these greedy characters made one tragic mistake that got them involved with something over their heads.
Yeah, I actually wrote down greed/grief, and there's this one. I wish I had written it down because he goes, she says, or Javier, or she says, like greed is greed is that, and he goes, no, greed is this. And I can't remember the specifics, but I was gonna say there's something about the Southwest brings out such interesting things. I'm thinking of Bring Me the Peckinpah comes to mind. Bring Me the Head of Frank Garcia and The Getaway, how it ends, and the trash and Neil and the desolation and the just the grief. Greed is. Yeah, a big proponent of this thing. I mean, that's what isn't the whole film a metaphor about greed? And that's what
I guess.
Does The Road and these other books play into that? Is he?
I don't think so. I mean, grief. I think is more.
He's more of a grief guy. Well, there's grief in this too.
I think. See, the other reason, like, I think Ridley Scott. I mean, I imagine he's obviously read Blood Meridian, but it feels like he got this template from No Country, the movie, and it's just like there's much more interesting stuff going on. Like, but at the same time, it's that weird. It ends up working in a weird way because Ridley Scott shoots this movie like a commercial, like a very consumerist, capitalist commercial, and there's these cheap Mexican jokes throughout the movie of. Why wasn't Jesus born in Mexico was one of the jokes they made, and it becomes clear that when you look at the drug trade in America versus Mexico, like there's two sides to it. There's in basic economics, there's supply and demand, and if Mexico is supplying the drugs, the demand is coming from America, and it seems like McCarthy, I feel like, is more interested in the rotting uh, underneath of what's throughout all this consumerism too.
Yeah, but he wants to philosophize about it. That's the thing. He wants to bring in these little heavy. Another person I was thinking. I don't know why, but I was thinking of. Nobody talks like Woody Allen films either. Nobody. The whole sequence with Brad and Michael talking, and the whole sequence with the diamond dealer and Michael Fassbender talking. Then we got. How about when camera goes to the priest?
Whenever Penelope Cruz and Cameron Diaz are getting massages, do they talk about Catholicism in that scene?
Yeah, well, she talks about a religion. I don't know if this is Catholicism per se. She talks about going to confession. So yeah, I mean,
okay.
I don't
because that scene in the script I remember more detailed, setting up her going to confession.
Although yeah, she's intrigued, and she writes,
Edgar Ramirez as the priest in that scene.
Yeah. Yeah, what's wonderful too, throughout this film. Another reason, guys, that folks out there listening, to watch this film, is a lot of cool cameos show up. Rosie Perez shows up in it, and does this nice little part.
It's interesting to bring up Rosie Perez. The other thing that I think that McCarthy is interested in is there's a lot of cheap machismo in some of the earlier, like they keep talking about women being this, women being that, and it's two men talking, and they throw away these lines and it doesn't seem to apply, and women I remember this from the first read. Women are the secret underbelly of this movie.
Well, yeah,
they're like Rosie Perez, her acting in just that one scene. I mean, she's the one that sets off this story out of going out of its rails.
Yes,
does she know what she's doing in that scene? Because when I watched her performance this last time, I was like, I think she knows what she's doing.
You could go down that avenue. Yeah, really easily, because I think that's the thing. Ridley and Cormac withhold so much information from you, the viewer, backstories and other things, that that's maybe another frustration for why he didn't do well, because it's just so much withheld, and you got to do a lot of work, or try to do some work, bring some of yourself to
you have to figure out details in these long scenes.
And Rosie, yeah, I didn't even thought about that. There's a lot. Yeah, you could probably think about that scene a lot. And speaking of the Rosie Perez, I also, like you said about the women in this movie, I like the fact you said there's just a lot of back and forth talking dialogue, but there's these little tiny things that happen when her son is killed.
Which is one of the best scenes in the movie,
and it's a very interesting set piece, how he gets killed, and that sets off things going totally wrong for everybody. The minute he gets killed, she's in prison. She wakes up,
mm-hmm.
and it's one of those where you think you've heard about people having dreams or spiritual awakenings, or a vibe that happens when somebody that you love dearly and can be far away and something happens to them and you feel it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That is in there. And I mean, and I'm thinking, and it seemed to come out to me, it was like, oh, that's interesting. And of course it cuts to another scene right after that Penelope wakes up, kind of gets up and makes her phone call to Cameron,
mm-hmm.
Back to back. And I'm
mm-hmm.
like, okay, there's something here going on. It's interesting, and it's kind of a weird spiritual that's not in line with other things in the movie. And then I love going back to Cameron and the women. One more thing here, I love at the beginning when the first scene we see Cameron and Harvey and they're watching the cheetahs hunt, and they're out on a little picnic or whatever. And then she goes, "There it goes," and the sun goes down real quick.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and it's almost like it's almost like breaks the fourth wall to me in a way. She goes, "There it goes."
She has a repeating character where she's eating a lot. She talks about being hungry. The final line of the movie is, "I'm famished." Her character, Okay, Penelope Cruz's character, as far as I can tell, is the only the only guileless woman in the movie. Guile seems to be a big thing that McCarthy is attributing to a lot of the women, mainly Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz has this cheetah tattoo going up her back, which I feel really bad because reading some of the initial reviews when I first saw it, I thought it was some kind of cougar joke or something. But it's an interesting choice. Very infamously, she's playing a character. I want to say she's Jamaican. She's not American because she comments on America. And supposedly the rumor was that she originally did the entire performance in this very Rihanna-esque Jamaican accent, and they redubbed her entire performance to get it out of it.
And she wasn't really happy, and accordingly, apparently didn't help publicize it because she was so upset about that. Did we finish talking about the car scene with her?
No, I wanted to give a whole section on the car scene.
Oh.
The car scene, you seem like you think it's cheap that everyone loves the car scene.
No, I don't think people did love it. I think that was the breaking point. I think that's the scene that made this film people not like it, or it would overboard, or it went off the rails, or it was stupid and silly, or it's crazy. And I'm thinking,
or as Javier Bardem says, too gynecological.
Yeah. And I just thought, really? I mean, yeah, it is outrageous, totally. But that's part of the point, and it's part of her character. And so
there's a line exchange at the end of the scene that I think typifies the movie. Fassbender asks, "Does this have anything to do with the deal?" And Javier Bardem says, "I don't know."
I think isn't it one of the features or something? Like, yes, a lot of his lines. I don't know. I don't know.
Javier Bardem says the central line of his character is, "I don't know."
Yeah, and you should talk about how Harvey is just wonderful in this thing. He has his hair up like Brian Glazer. He based it on Brian Glazer.
It is Brian Grazer's hair.
Yeah, he totally based it on that. And
because Ridley Scott keeps calling it blingy.
Yeah.
He just keeps saying blingy.
Yeah, and I love his body language the entire film. He's jittery, and he's got this kind of looseness to him. And I'm almost because of the set piece about the courier, the son, and how he dies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking almost like Harvey is. Almost like his head's not attached because you watch his head and he's doing a lot of
Well, because beheading that goes back to the cartel thing I was talking about, just because it's just that bizarre, stereotypical savage drug dealers who are constantly going to be beheading, and like so many characters lose their head. Brad Pitt's demise at the end is an amazing scene, but his when he's lifted.
Which is, I think, in the sneak cut. I don't remember that in the theatrical.
You don't? It's in the screenplay.
Yeah, but it's not in the theatrical. In fact, Ridley, if she goes, I think we went a little too far there. It's like,
oh no, it's such a great moment in the script. I'm glad that was in the extended.
So we go back to do we need to finish? Do we need to
the car scene? You want the car scene?
Well, I just say no. I guess when we told our listening audience, basically she takes her underwear off. They're in a Jaguar. I think it's a Jaguar.
That makes sense with the cat theme.
Yeah, but they're parked out somewhere, and she takes her underwear off. He calls them knickers. Do Mexicans call?
There's a lot of odd Britishisms coming in and out.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And she gets she makes love to the car.
She straddles the car. Ridley Scott had to get a dancer to test out if this was physically possible. If this was physically possible. And when this episode comes out, I haven't told you this, Dad, but the image accompanying the episode is going to be the central image, which I think is a great image just because it's a woman fake trying to sell sex on top of a man and the man looking on confused. I feel like that's a very central image for this movie.
Yeah. But if you watch the features, they actually show the gymnast going practicing that sequence in the garage with a bunch of mechanics around standing around going, what the heck are you doing? But yeah, so it's a scene that really kind of I think that's what everybody was talking about and concentrating, and just thought and almost that ruined the film, or that just went too far, or that was too silly. And I'm just thinking, are you watching the same film I'm watching? I mean, right. I don't know.
There's good bad shit and there's bad shit. Yeah. That's good bad shit.
So again, it's at that level where I was kind of like I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here?
I really do think this movie peaks in the middle, but not in a bad way. I'm saying it gets in the middle stuff. There's some amazing stuff.
Well, I guess we got to get to the other thing I was going because I said, should I talk to you before we started recording this? But the plot, and again, I don't think it's really that important because you get so much, the characters and what they're saying is more important than anything else.
That's so true. That's a good point.
And so, but you basically, when he makes the deal, he needs a chunk of money, and Brad Pitt's the go-between. We see a truck loaded up with drugs. And it's made to look like it's a septic tank truck, which has got tons and tons of.
It's got waste around
waste,
it.
yeah. So that it's it gets hijacked. It gets stolen
by Cameron Diaz's workers.
People.
Yeah.
Okay, so now she's doing something behind her boyfriend Javier's back. Because she knows this is going on, and she's doing okay. I guess she's in it for her own self and doesn't care about him as much as he thinks she does. As we'd like her to do.
Mm-hmm.
So now she's got it. Then the cartel people come up and take it,
and they get it back.
Oh, I see. Now that's where I think if they get it back, then why do they want to kill everybody?
They just wanted an excuse or something.
I think are there rival cartels? See, maybe you need to school me a little bit. I don't know. I thought I should look this up. I assume there's multiple cartels and they're all fighting against each other, right? And over territory, over who makes the most money. So I'm thinking it's another cartel that gets it.
Okay, but we don't detail that.
No. Yeah, because it gets all the way to Chicago, and there's another cameo.
John Leguizamo and Dean Norris.
Yeah, and a wonderful little scene there too about a little humor, dark humor about drug dealers
and a body.
Yeah, that's the humor.
I ruined your joke, Dad.
No. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what the humor is about. Is the body. So now I'm thinking, okay, so this rival cartel has it. That's why the cartel that the council was dealing with is pissed off because they're not getting anything out of it, and that's why they have to die. Everybody has to die. But then again, like you said, about the Rosie Perez, like you said earlier about the Rosie Perez, she could be on this thing in a different layer. Yeah, the cartel came back and said, "Screw it, we're just going to get rid of these people." But, I don't. Why would they want to get? Oh, in fact, you might be right. They wanted to only kidnap Harvey Bardem, and the guy actually shoots him in the head. And he's bad.
Did they want to kidnap him, or did they want to get him alive so that they could torture him or behead him for video?
Yeah, or kidnap him for whatever. Yeah. I mean, there could be multiple reasons. So again, I say all this. I don't want to scare people off. That if you can't get any conclusions out of it, why should I bother watching it? That's not the point. Again, that's not the point
of the movie.
It's more the emotional and the philosophical elements of this film to get to you and to make you think about this.
It gets tricky for me just because it feels like the cartel are treated like a malevolent force or death coming, which death is a big part of McCarthy's things. But a lot of my knowledge of the cartels, all it comes is from like
movies,
Ozarks. I'm a big fan of the Don Winslow Power of the Dog trilogy, although I've only read the last two, but they're amazing books. I really highly recommend those, even though they're kind of, to be fair, little airport books. He's the guy that's writing, by the way, the Heat prequel for Michael Mann. Yeah.
What about and then Rosie Perez, another cameo with the head of the cartel.
Who is the cartel?
Ruben Blades.
Oh.
Yeah, wonderful little.
He gives and then
again, it's
philosophical speech.
It's almost to the point where you feel
he starts talking about the Mexican poet.
Yeah, and he's going on and on, and you're feeling for the counselor because the counselor's at this time Fossbender. He's at his end. He said he knows his and Ruben Blades going
right before this. Basically, what I found fascinating was when they know everything's going south, they still hang around for a long period of time. And I also noted that they're all sitting in the highest end hotels. They're drinking.
Oh yeah,
highest
there's especially you're right. I mean, there was a great sequence where it's going downhill, and Harvey is just stretched out on a lounger with a martini or whatever. I'm just like, Are you kidding me? I'd gather everything I had and get my butt out of there.
There's definitely something to this like decadence of American consumerism being on display, which is again like as much as I was saying earlier, Ridley Scott. There's some. I don't think it's that he's the wrong choice. There was just some decisions on some of the dialogue scenes that I'm like, they felt very half baked, and then stuff like this works where. I mean, it feels like an Armani commercial in so much of the movie, and then suddenly the scene you're talking about where Fassbender like he hasn't been able to give. He's doing a cipher performance for most of the movie, where like he just keeps like, especially at the beginning, he just talks to another person who's telling him an interesting story about something, and then that scene is when he finally gets to. I don't know if I'm saying it just because he gets to cry and let snot go over his mouth, but.
He's listening to stories and he gets the car, camera making love to the car was a flashback that Harvey had told, so we get to see it. Harvey tells another story at the disco, and we don't go to a flashback for it. We just have to listen. We got to rely on Ridley's editing, directing and editing of it for the Harvey telling him. So there's different choices he's making here. Again, I just remember. I think one reason in retrospect, thinking about it, how much I walked out of it thinking, it just seems so fresh and wonky. And the fact, look at how we're talking about it right now. Isn't this kind of isn't this what you want a film to do sometimes, to get you to initiate this, as opposed to just like, you go in, you sit back, and it washes over you, and you walk out and go, yeah, that was okay.
Well, to your point earlier about comparing this to the homogenous, like, normal movie you would expect, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this is a movie with character, and that Pauline Kael quote we both love. What's it? Not all great movies are perfect. No great movie is a perfect movie.
And if you want to put another, here's another weird thought I crossed my mind watching this. Shane was, it's a nihilistic James Bond film. Because you got Fassbender's could be a great Bond. If you want to watch what's the Soderbergh film where he has the hotel fight scene?
Oh my God, I'm blanking on it. The one with the former Disney employee Gina Carano.
The canceled out career of her.
Yeah, that is such an amazing fight scene too.
Yeah, and you see him at Tux, and it's like, oh, he could be Bond so easily. But it's like, he's James Bond, and there's diamonds, and there's action set pieces, and there's the women, the femme fatale, the good women, the bad women. It's like you just like knocked it over a little bit, and you get this kind of weird ears-at James Bond film that deals, in the evil. And then I also thought another nice little spin-off. You could go straight from this, go to watch Uncut Gems. And just take,
that would be a good double feature.
Just, take where you're at with this is the film, and then just, go into 10th gear with Uncut Gems out of it, So
one reason diagnosis I have of why this got one of the you read a little bit of the original reviews from this, right?
A little bit, not much. I didn't go.
As far as I can tell, this is the only time Cormac McCarthy has written something contemporary. Because the thing is that he was known for incubating his novels for a long period of time. Like the new novel that has been finished, he was working on supposedly for 30 years. No Country for Old Men, I think. No Country for Old Men, I think, takes place either in the late 70s or early 80s. But No Country for Old Men started out as a screenplay, right?
No, I didn't know that.
He started out as a screenplay, and McCarthy then turned it into a novel. And there felt like... I think just the artifice, like you were talking about, Woody Allen movies don't, no one sounds like they do in a Woody Allen movie. The writerliness of it let people think there was still like this bubbled in aspect to writing contemporary life that isn't exactly, I don't know if it's the artifice or it just feels like it was a detachment from real life. I don't know, does that make sense?
I'm not sure. I'm going to follow you on that. I mean, I got to think about what you're making me. Well, you prompted me to think about how No Country ends, and again, you get this whole dialogue sequence, which I think for some people, in particular, as a whole, we had this thing about what movies end so surprisingly that they just suddenly end. Oh my gosh! Yeah, Well, I love the story because we watched it. I was watching it with an employee screening at the theater. and it caught us all so off guard. And it was one of the first films we had ever seen on digital. They were projecting it digitally. The guy manager screening it goes, "Well, I can play that sequence back." He runs up. We watched it again because we were just so thrown off by that. But I think that either breaks or makes audiences on that film.
And then I woke up.
Or they want to just cut that film off and don't even worry about that sequence. And I think that actually encompasses what goes on through the entire film of the Ridley Scott film.
The point I was making a second ago is
go back to
there was accusations in some of the early reviews that they were old men out of touch. Ridley Scott and Cormac McCarthy were old men out of touch.
Out of touch from what?
Well, like the quaintness, the unsexy quaintness of the first scene, the way the cartel was handled in the movie.
I want to say that the whole opening sequence, it's very blunt and frank sex talk. And Ridley says,
I think that's one of those ones that it's more in the unrated cut.
Yeah. And Ridley said that he doesn't like to shoot sex scenes. They go, "That's boring." I mean, it's that what and what do people? How do people that are that close to each other talk? I'm like, it's.
Did you see that interview with McCarthy on the DVD where he was complaining about, like, I feel like people in Hollywood have never had sex before.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. And basically he was referring to how people just like all of a sudden just run to a room and just throw their clothes off and attack each other, right off the bat without any kind of warm up or any kind of.
And he talked about married people really don't have, like, once you get married in a Hollywood movie, you stop having sex and you stop talking about sex and you stop not wanting to have sex with your wife. Yeah. In prep for this, I also read McCarthy's first screenplay, The Gardener's Son, which was commissioned by a director named Richard Pierce for like a $200,000 movie that aired on PBS, and it's got Brad Dourif in it.
I don't know. Richard Pierce is ringing the bell for some reason.
I'm unfamiliar with them.
Did you look him up?
No, I didn't. I mean, he's no, actually, I did. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. He had done some other stuff, but this movie is very hard to find. Around the time Counselor came out, it was up on YouTube. It's already been knocked out. But compared to this No Country, what if you can imagine it in screenplay form, Gardener's Son, I wouldn't call it conventional, but it's more. It's of the time, like it was right before McCarthy won the MacArthur Genius Grant. He'd only written 3 novels, I think, at the point, and Sutri was about to come out. And there's some overlap with Sutri in there where, like, Garner's Son, like, one character is drinking and there's an obsession with parents. It's a multi-generation thing. It has these book and mirror scenes. It feels really... But, like, you think of No Country as a screenplay. Like, No Country still has that, like, amazing choice to kill Llewellyn halfway through the movie. Or little, like, what, 3/5 of the way through the movie. Like, it still has a left turn. Garner's Son doesn't. I don't know. I mean, like, I think McCarthy's credited on Sunset Limited, the actual movie, so he's written 4 screenplays that we know of. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of unmade and unpublished ones, too. But... I mean, I don't really have a point with this. I'm just saying, like,
well, no, I'm just rattling off his credits. No, it's important because I remember it was a big deal when this movie came out. They just kept on harping about it. It's straight to the screen, and it's everybody was good. And of course, I guess I forgot. You reminded me. I guess the attention of No Country was just huge. Of course, I remember working at Channel 14. We carried Oprah, and Oprah was also that was her book. It was one of her book of the month clubs. Was The Road.
Did I ever tell you I made my mom read The Road?
Because of Oprah.
Yeah, I thought I could sell her on it.
Did she?
Yeah, she read it. She just said it was weird. I was curious what she was going to think of the end because the ending is so touching. There's a certain amount of nihilism that went away in McCarthy's stuff. I think when he had his kid too, which The Road is written about his kid. But I think McCarthy's the point I was making is his screenwriting career is interesting just because screenwriters never have power. They never have power. And then people very rarely, if they come after them to make movies, they usually are pushed to become directors. Like very few, like Charlie Kaufman became a director, but for a while he was one of those like every script was an event. Aaron Sorkin, he's recently started directing, but every script was an event. Patty Chayefsky's one of the closest ones I can think of like people came after everything he wrote and he never wanted to direct or he never pushed into directing. But it's hard. It's very it's very rare for a screenwriter to do something formally different and actually have a director follow through on it, like this movie. That's another distinct thing that's it's really interesting and amazing about this movie.
Yeah, and I go back. I think it kind of it charged. I think it charged Ridley's batteries a little bit. Kind of jostled them a little bit. Maybe keeping on a tight budget. He kept on harping on the features about save you time. You got to shoot the same location. Shoot, don't keep because you got to move. If you move around a lot, you're going to lose money. You're eating money up.
And he found different ways of redressing the same location.
Yeah, like one set was like used 3 different ways just because of camera angles.
He is. I mean, he's really. I always think of like the reshoots in Blade Runner where it's a scene whenever Deckard finds the scale in the bathtub. That's not Harrison Ford. He just shot a double in silhouette, and you can't really tell that it's not Harrison Ford. He just got so many good tricks, and he's good at world building. That's why just like the fact that he's just like, I mean, Ridley Scott's 83 years old.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that I didn't think twice when I watched it in the theater years ago that they were shooting, in Mexican locations and Mexican restaurants and Mexican places. So, the bulk of those buildings and places are in England.
That blew my mind. Or in Spain. Like they didn't. There was like 2 shots in America. There's all this second unit stuff in America, but they didn't shoot in the United States.
Yeah, and how do you pull off London being Mexico?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the magic of cinema. Right there. There's the magic of movie and an eye that Ridley has. And I'd love to see if you watch the featurettes closely. Ridley's constantly moving little things in the set. He's constantly adjusting stuff, and I'm like, what? I wonder how many directors really do that. I bet there's a lot of directors that don't even mess with that. But Ridley, no, he's in there. He needs that the placements in special ways.
Ridley Scott always brags that before Duelists and before Blade Runner that he made like I don't know a certain number thousands of commercials. Yeah. He says like he can because. The reason he's such a multi-camera guy was because Blade Runner seems like such a bad experience for him, where he was so used to being his operator in his first American shot movie, and he was using American unions, and he couldn't operate anymore. And every movie's now like a 3-camera setup, and
the multi-cameras. Who started that? Yeah, has that been around since the dawn of time, or because I want to name a director that of course one of my favorite directors that I think was known for his use of multi cameras.
Lester.
Yeah, that's one reason he can edit the way he edits because he was always the argument. I thought he was early. I think he was one of the early users of multiple cameras. So I don't
know. The purity argument against multi-camera versus single camera is that. Basically, you divide your attention on the visual that you're trying to get for the scene, and you're sectioning off different areas of your frame because you have to hide a camera. And a lot of purists like to think that it's more pure to have single camera, and like Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, will never shoot multi-camera. He never wants to shoot multi-camera.
Has Godard always been one camera, you think?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Well, Godard would make sense just because multi-cameras, I mean, I guess it would make the sitcom is the source of where people first started to do it and where it got a bad reputation. But I mean, one of the oddest proponents of this for someone that's so visual and meticulous about his frame is David Fincher. He's a big multi-camera shooter. But like, I don't think Soderbergh's a multi-camera shooter.
Really, because Soderbergh loves Lester, yeah. But anyway, I thought that was really curious about. But again, Ridley's eye, and again, I was kind of thinking. I think I was just kind of trudging along with Ridley's career at that point, and this movie came along and it shook off the dust a little bit. I think.
I shit on the dialogue scenes in this, but one great example that you were talking about him injecting his career. One of my favorite Ridley Scott scenes of the last 10 years is the Alien Covenant scene of David talking to David, or the Fassbender. I think that I do not like that movie. That movie does not work for me, but that scene is amazing.
A couple of other notes. I just was looking at my notes here. I said I thought Cameron Diaz had interesting little points. Maybe she's the guiding force. Or in some ways that you could put the whole film on her shoulders.
She's the smartest person in the movie.
Yeah, and I said that when the sun goes down, she goes, "There it goes," and that's like near the beginning of the film. It's like, okay, the sun goes down, and we're going for broken here. She also says, "What a world."
I don't remember that.
That's at the end. That's when after Penelope and her having her talk at the health spa, and that the religious talk, and she's just baffled by the nicety of Penelope's world and her outlook, and she goes, "What a world!" and Penelope's kind of insulted by it.
There's an exchange near the end of the movie that I don't know if is emblematic of a bad portrayal of women or the fact that the women are the ones that are smart and know what's going on in the movie, where she's talking to Natalie Dormer. And she asks, Natalie Dormer has seduced Brad Pitt to get access to his, like, the codes for
this computer to get his money, to transfer his money.
And Cameron Diaz asks, are you going to see him again? And she says, what would be the point? He'll be broke.
Yeah. And then one other thing I wrote down was when she actually gets the priest to walk out of the confessional booth. The priest, he won't. He's like, "You're not Catholic. You don't know if you're baptized. Why, you're just playing with me. You're not. You're not really here to confess." So he walks out, and she goes. Her last thing in that scene goes, "I wasn't finished." So it's like she's constantly, capping these scenes and with these little one-off sentences that make me think she's progressing. The whole thing is progressing on her account.
McCarthy gives her little buttons verbal buttons to end each scene.
Exactly.
Okay. One of the last things I want to talk about is going to be a left field turn, but McCarthy. I mentioned this earlier. His novel, The Passenger, which was originally supposed to come out in 2015, and he was working on The Passenger when he wrote the script. He took 5 weeks aside and the screenplay. The Passenger. There's speculation online that he might be pulling a J.D. Salinger, where he's holding back a few books and might not release any of them until he's died. Originally, it was supposed to come out in 2015. It was supposed to have a 2-book, or either be divided into 2 books, or there's supposed to be a second book, maybe similar to The Road and Sunset Limited. Right now, it has no publication date. But at the same time, McCarthy, he's a researcher outside this thing called the Santa Fe Institute, which mixes science and the arts, supposedly. And there was actually a reading of excerpts of it at there. And this book sounds really fascinating. It's it involves it supposedly is about the origin of language, but it involves a schizophrenic woman checks into a mental institute, and her father was involved with the Manhattan Project. There might be something involving the first words ever spoken by a human being 100 years ago was holy shit. And the idea that speaking something made something a metaphor for the first time. And so it was the way of representing something that isn't. McCarthy also wrote somewhere around this time his first nonfiction essay that came from the Santa Fe Institute called The Cocool Problem. And it goes really in depth to this about McCarthy's interested in the unconscious, and he defines the unconscious really fascinatingly. He calls it the machine that operates animals. It's basically the thing that keeps us going. And he talks about language and the unconscious in this essay. It's a little bit of a long read, but not that long of a long read. If the book, The Passenger, is about some expounding upon what's in this essay, this book is going to be amazing because it's McCarthy doing quantum physics and math and the origin of language. Like, this sounds fascinating to me.
Well, I mean, I have catching up to do because I haven't read any of the books, but
I didn't mean to put you on the spot for that.
No. I mean, I'm very forthcoming about that. But yeah, I mean, I've seen of the films based on his works, I'm very intrigued by him, and if I get to a point where I have lots of time on my hands, I hope to dive into this.
What's also fascinating about the nonfiction essay is the plainness of the language for a guy who, like McCarthy. My favorite thing about him is the way he does compound words. He'll take random words and make a compound word that doesn't exist, but he'll do that. He's big into biblical language. The Bible seems like a very literary influence on him. People tend to talk up like Faulkner and Hemingway when they talk about him. Sometimes, like, I think Melville's his favorite writer he's mentioned, but like, and this doesn't really help anyone's appreciation as a counselor per se, but this was the novel he was writing whenever he like decided to take 5 weeks away.
Yeah, he just said, I need to take a break. He said, I want to take a break. And this is what he did. This is how he takes a break. McCarthy's screenplay.
McCarthy's career is defined by 2 periods: the Appalachian period, and which ends with Sutri, and then goes into the Southwest period. And in Sunset Limited, I think the movie takes place in New York. I don't know if it's mentioned in the play or novel, what do you want to call it, but in theory, the Counselor might be his last Southwest work, because the publisher described The Passenger, this new book, as the 3rd period of McCarthy's career.
Southwest, yeah, it makes me think of this. How many, going back to what we mentioned it earlier, how there's such a, you could do a film festival of Southwestern West films, and then the cartels and the nihilism. Sicario comes to mind too. You think about Sicario, or that Jeff Bridges film, The Hell. Hell and High Water, just all that. McCarthy he was really good at that, pinpointing that.
I really hope he's not pulling the Salinger, just because, like, I mean, I hope he goes another few years and writes a lot more, just because it's not just Harold Bloom. A lot of other people think that he is our greatest American writer.
Harold Bloom thought that, huh?
Harold Bloom. I think Harold Bloom said, if not the best, he has this distinction of the 4 great American living at the time when he made it. It was McCarthy, Thomas Pynchon, Philip Roth, and Don DeLillo. Do you have anything else, Ted?
No. I wrote down here Philosopher's Stone on my notes. I think it's actually Bruno Ganz mentions that, or
right.
Yeah, and again,
not Harry Potter is what you're saying.
Folks, it was interesting. I mentioned this to 3 of my friends. I go, hey, have you guys seen The Counselor? And none of them have seen it. And some, I don't know if I could even recall it. And I was just like, man, you got Brad Pitt, Harvey, Penelope, and Cameron. And Cameron always surprises me, because I think this could be Cameron's. What Casino is to Sharon Stone. This could be Cameron's. This could be Cameron's tour de force.
I had to look it up. She's unofficially retired, and this is like her 3rd last role. So it's not her, like, Annie was weirdly her last role.
Yeah, and she, I never was a huge. I mean, in fact, really points out that you don't think of Cameron Diaz in this kind of part. And I think I'm guilty of that. And I thought she was weak. She didn't work for me in Gangs of New York.
I was about to say, I think she does work for me in Gangs of New York.
Really? Well, that's
a little. I think she's got more weight in Gravitas than people give her credit for, but it's a thankless part.
I need to go back and watch it again. It's been a long time since I watched it, but I remember thinking,
I do love that.
I was thinking, I remember one of my takeaways was that the chemistry between her and Leo wasn't that great. But anyway, I was just really amazed by her performance. I think she really works it great. And like I said, and then it surprises you, just like when Sharon and Casino surprised you, like, wow, she's got the chops in the right situation, the right, the screenplay, right director, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So don't, folks, see this film. It's like, don't seek it out. It's and yeah, if you walk away from going, well, that was wonky, well, that's fine. Don't be afraid of that, because it's a good wonky.
Well, I think the key point is one you made earlier, that it's a great watch, but it's an even better rewatch.
Yeah, and I'm ready to watch it again, just to keep on, with a notepad sometimes, and write some of the things down, because I'm just like, okay, there's something here really to take your fork and knife and cut into.
You know what might be a good gateway into reading Cormac McCarthy for you, Ted? Read the screenplay, the published screenplay.
Yeah, in fact, I thought I bought the book. I thought I bought it. I think I was looking at my shelf, because I go out of my way to buy a lot of those. I got all the Tarantino screenplays in book format. I have the Coen Brothers screenplays in book format. And I remember the book sitting on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, and I thought I bought it, but if I haven't, I haven't shelved it properly.
The
yet.
cover of that first version is this movie has a very ugly poster. It's just
Just the faces, just like
it's
four
face. It's not just the faces; it's the color design behind the faces. That like they have that purple that's in Javier Bardem's office behind him, and it's just like it's like the worst of trends in posters, and yeah.
I guess we should mention too a small little note. I don't know if this impacted or this makes any impact at all or whatever, but Tony, his brother, committed suicide when he was doing this film.
It was during this film?
It's during this film, and he had to take a break and be with the family for a while, and then came back and resumed it and finished it. So I'm not sure if that plays it. Like I said, there's that one really bizarre deleted scene where I'm like, this is not Tony. This is not Scott's usual editing style. It's more like his brother. So I don't know.
I think he's capable of it.
Oh yeah. Well, I think really could. But I remember Tony took that interesting turn where Men on Fire and Domino.
Yeah.
Where
the double exposures
and all kind of like the taking notes from Natural Born Killers and Tarantino, but
my favorite thing of his, it was in Man on Fire, is the words on screen.
Oh, the subtitles, how they use the subtitles. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, very good usage of that. I guess I want to leave it with McCarthy in the Oprah interview. What he did said something along the lines that it's something along the lines that it's not literature unless it deals with life and death. And I mean, this movie, it's definitely one of the reasons it's hard to talk about is it's more than the sum of its parts. The way what it's talking about, whether or not it has a cheap or nihilistic view of things or it has a profound, interesting view of things, it's in the aggregate. It really is, and it's kind of hard to like put your finger on and describe too, like a good literary work.
I'll tell you this. This just struck me now when you said that I remember walking out of that film thinking I had gone to purgatory. I had gone to the depths of.
That's interesting.
I really felt that. I mean, I walked out and just felt, oh my gosh, because they had just taken the counsel of Fassbender's character and just came down on him, and that scene in the hotel room when he's just when he gets the CD, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And I even had memories in my head that are not in the movie of just him, or actually maybe when he's wandering outside and the protest is going on, but I just remember him just lost.
It's not a protest. They're talking about dead bodies from the cartel, victims of the cartel.
Yeah, they're protesting. They're saying we got to do something about these.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah.
And the sense of just you're in this oblivious purgatory that's just gonna. There's nothing you can do, and just wait for the inevitable.
Did you feel that way in No Country after you got there in No Country?
No, because No Country, the dream threw me off so much. Him just sitting there talking, that I didn't. It played a little bit different for me. I felt like I felt more content. I mean, or in terms of coming out of it and what I gleaned from it. Whereas I had a sense of grief walking out of this one.
Do you think you felt stronger about? I mean,
yeah.
No Country is a tour de force, and it's a very
it's a fantastic film.
It's one of the greatest directing teams of all time. Very cinematic ones, doing some of their best work, or they're showing like there's a thing where the Coens have been holding off they'd done that screenplay To the White Sea that was supposed to be mostly silent, but they hadn't really done a long extended silent sequence, and there's just a lot of great cinematic work in that. But
well, you know what? Well, here, let me throw this at you. It's the fact that No Country, the hotel room sequence where Javier's character is, there's a little weirdness goes on there,
right?
And then Tommy Lee Jones' dialogue. It to me it was like it played.
It's like a little metaphysical.
It played so straight, and then all of a sudden we're in the world of what's the genre?
Magic realism?
Yeah, magic realism. Also, are we in magic realism or mystical or metaphorical? Also, it just it did this little twist.
It's kind of dark magic realism.
Yeah, whereas I felt like it felt like I was in this world right from the beginning. I mean, with the counselor, you're in it. You just feel edgy the whole time. It's all there. It starts right there and doesn't let go. As opposed to you just in No Country, you're kind of in the this is going to sound terrible. Like a normal, you feel like you're in a normal world watching and then all of a sudden, whoop! It twists on you at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I already said it. Value judgments are cheap, rankings are cheap, but you just said you think you like The Counselor more than No Country for Old Men.
It sounds like that. It sounds like that. I haven't really thought about it because I think right now I'm just saying I'm chewing on The Counselor much more than I'm chewing on No Country. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I'm just saying it's given me. I'm playing with it more.
It's all good and well, Ted, but you said it. It's recorded, and that's going on the TV spot for the next TV spot for The Counselor.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to have
take that.
Ridley. I don't want Joel and Ethan to be mad at me. So.
Well, I guess that's it for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, we could. Yeah, I think so. I mean, just watch the film, folks. Check it out. Be daring and take a chance on this thing because it's and you get these actors. At least the performances are fun.
And don't give in to greed, people. Everyone listening, don't give in to greed. Thanks everybody for listening.